The sun was setting over the western plains, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose when Jacob first saw them through the dusty window of his ranch house. 3 young women were stumbling across his property, their clothes torn and stained, with what looked like dried blood and dirt. Jacob had been alone on this ranch for near about 15 years now, ever since his wife Martha had passed. He was a man of 62, with weathered hands and a face lined by years of hard work under the relentless sun. The ranch wasn't much anymore, just enough cattle to keep him busy and a few horses that had grown old alongside him. When he stepped out onto the porch that evening, he wasn't expecting company. The tallest of the 3 women had dark hair that hung in tangles around her face. She was supporting one of the others who seemed barely able to walk. The 3rd woman had her arms wrapped around herself and was shivering, despite the warmth of the early autumn evening. Jacob stood there, for a moment his hand resting on the porch railing as years of caution warred with something deeper in his chest. These were somebody's daughters. He thought somebody's sisters or maybe mothers themselves. He could see the fear in their eyes as they spotted him, and he raised one hand slowly in a gesture of peace. The dark-haired woman spoke first, her voice hoarse and cracking. They needed help, she said. They had escaped from something, she didn't specify what, and they had been walking for 2 days. Could they please just have some water and maybe rest for a few hours before moving on? Jacob looked at them for a long moment, taking in their bare feet, cut and bleeding, and the way they swayed with exhaustion. He nodded slowly and gestured toward the house. Come on inside, he said quietly. Let's get you cleaned up and fed. The women exchanged glances, uncertainty written across their faces. Jacob understood that hesitation. He had a daughter once, though. She lived far away now in one of the coastal cities, and rarely called. If she were in trouble, he hoped someone would show her kindness. The youngest of the 3 started crying, then soft tears that she tried to hide by turning her face away. That decided it for Jacob. He opened the door wider and stepped back, giving them space to enter. The house was simple inside, neat in the way that solitary people keep their spaces. There was a worn sofa and a kitchen table that Martha had picked out decades ago. Pictures on the walls showed happier times. A wedding photo, a young girl with pigtails holding a prize ribbon at the county fair. Jacob gestured toward the bathroom down the hall. There's towels in the cabinet, he said, and I'll find some clothes that might fit you. They were Martha's things, stored in boxes. In the spare room, he hadn't been able to part with them even after all these years. While the women took turns washing up, Jacob set about making food. His hands moved automatically, measuring coffee grounds into the old percolator and pulling bread and cheese from the icebox. He fried eggs and heated up beans from the night before. It wasn't fancy, but it was hot and filling. The dark-haired woman emerged first, wearing one of Martha's old cotton dresses. It hung loose on her thin frame, but she looked more human now with the dirt washed away. Thank you, she said, standing awkwardly in the kitchen doorway. Jacob just nodded and pointed to the table. Sit and eat, he said. You look like you need it. Her name was Catherine, she told him as she ate. The other 2 were her sisters Emma and young Sarah. They had been taken 6 months ago, she said, her voice dropping low. Taken by men who promised them work in a town up north, but instead had kept them locked away. Jacob's jaw tightened as he listened, but he didn't interrupt. Some stories needed to be told in their own time. They had finally managed to escape 3 nights ago when one of the men had gotten careless with the locks. They had been running ever since, not knowing who to trust or where to go, just trying to put distance between themselves and that terrible place. Emma came out next, moving stiffly as if every muscle ached. She had a bruise darkening her cheek and her hands shook as she reached for the coffee. Jacob poured. Young Sarah was last, barely 20 by the look of her, with red-rimmed eyes that spoke of more tears than anyone so young should have shed. Jacob fed them all, and then he did something that surprised even himself. You can stay here as long as you need, he said. I've got a spare room and the sofa folds out. Nobody needs to know you're here if you don't want them to. Catherine looked at him with suspicion and hope warring in her expression. Why would you do that? She asked. What do you want from us? Jacob was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer. He looked down at his weathered hands folded on the table. I had a daughter, he said finally. She's grown now, and we don't talk much anymore. Had a falling out years back over something that seems silly now. But I think about her every day and I wonder if she's all right. if she's happy, if she ever needs help and has no one to turn to. He looked up, meeting Catherine's eyes. I'd like to think that if she ever needed it, someone would help her the way I'm offering to help. No strings attached, just basic human decency, which seems to be in short supply these days. Catherine's eyes filled with tears then, and she nodded. Emma reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. They stayed. Those first few days were quiet and healing. Jacob gave them space, understanding that they needed time to feel safe again. He went about his usual ranch work, mending fences and tending to the cattle. But he made sure to make enough food for 4 at mealtimes, and he left the doors unlocked, so they never felt trapped. Slowly they began to emerge from their shells. Emma started helping with the cooking, despite Jacob's protests that they were guests. She said it felt good to do something normal with her hands. Sarah spent hours sitting on the porch watching the horses graze. There was something soothing in their peaceful presence, she told Jacob one evening. Catherine was the most restless. She would walk the property at dawn and dusk as if making sure they were truly alone and safe. Jacob understood that too. He had seen men come back from war with that same watchful tension. One morning, about a week after they arrived, Jacob came in from the barn to find Catherine waiting for him. "We need to talk," she said. Jacob nodded and poured himself coffee, gesturing for her to continue. "We can't stay here forever," she said, though her voice held regret. "We need to figure out what to do next, where to go, how to start over." Jacob had been thinking about this too. He took a sip of his coffee and then spoke, carefully. "I've been alone on this ranch for a long time now," he said. "It's more space than one old man needs, and truthfully, the work is getting harder as I get older." He paused, meeting her eyes. "I could use help around here if you 3 were willing. Nothing formal, no obligations. Just honest work in exchange for room and board, a place to heal and figure out what comes next." Catherine stared at him. "You're offering us a home," she said slowly, as if testing the words. Jacob shrugged, trying to keep it casual, though his heart was beating harder than usual. "I'm offering a place to stay for as long as you need it," he said. "What you make of it is up to you." Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "We'll earn our keep," she said firmly. "We're not charity cases. I wouldn't insult you by suggesting you were." Jacob replied with a small smile. The weeks that followed brought changes to the ranch. Emma took over the kitchen completely, and Jacob found himself eating better than he had in years. She had a gift for making simple ingredients into comforting meals. Sarah started working with the horses, and Jacob was amazed to see how naturally she connected with them. They responded to her gentle touch, calming in her presence. She had a gift, he told her, and she smiled for the first time since arriving. Catherine learned the ranch work quickly. She was strong and capable, unafraid of hard labor. Side by side with Jacob, she mended fences, herded cattle, and repaired the old barn roof. They worked in companionable silence most days, both appreciating that the other didn't feel the need to fill every moment with talk. As autumn deepened into winter, the 4 of them fell into rhythms that felt almost like family. Meals together in the warm kitchen, evenings sitting by the fire while the wind howled outside. Small kindnesses like Emma making sure Jacob took his arthritis medicine, and Catherine fixing the porch step that had been loose for 3 years. Sarah brought in wildflowers when she found them growing, stubbornly in protected spots. It wasn't perfect. There were hard days when one of the women would withdraw into silence, dealing with memories that still haunted them. Jacob never pushed. He just made sure they knew he was there if they needed him. One cold December evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Jacob cleared his throat. "I've been thinking," he said. "This ranch will need someone to run it someday. I'm not getting any younger." He looked at Catherine, Emma, and Sarah in turn. "I don't have family. Who wants it? My daughter made her choice to leave this life behind. But you 3, you've brought life back to this place, made it feel like a home again, instead of just a house I'm waiting to die in." Catherine's eyes widened. "Jacob, what are you saying?" she asked. "I'm saying I'd like to make this official." He replied, "I've spoken to a lawyer in town. I can add all 3 of you to the deed, make you partners in this place. When I'm gone, it'll be yours, free and clear." Emma covered her mouth with her hand. "Sarah, Started crying again, but this time they were different tears. "Why would you do this?" Catherine whispered. "You barely know us." Jacob smiled, then a real smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "I know you well enough," he said. "I know you're hard workers. Know you're kind and honest. I know you take care of the animals and the land, and I know that you've taken care of me these past months in ways I didn't even realize I needed." He paused, his voice growing thick with him.